Welcome to Anything But Ordinary with Spooky and Raven. Tonight's topic was a viewer's request. We try our best to get each of them when we can. I am your host, Spooky, and here's your other most awesome host, Raven.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I got that intro completely wrong. Uh, I can't believe it. Tonight's topic is Aurora, Texas incident and the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter.
What do you say?
I don't know what I said. I really and truly don't.
Well,
I
we've
just
been
I
gone.
just screwed the whole thing up.
Yeah, we've been gone for a long time, and you had your health stuff, and I was on vacation finally, much needed vacation, that's for sure, because it's
Yep.
been a while. Can you just make sure your microphone's set to like 78, real quick? I appreciate that. Sorry, guys, we just kind of were out of the loop because it's been so long. You just kind of forget how to operate everything for a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah, it is.
tonight, because we do get a lot of suggestions and show topics, and we do write them all down, and eventually we will get to all of them.
Right. Tonight it's
Because
like I said. It's like I said. Tonight's topic is a viewer's request. And we do try our best to get to each of them when we can, and we would like to thank you all for sending in your suggestions.
right, and I don't know. I like talking about UFO stuff. I like talking about extraterrestrial stuff because me and you have talked about a lot of different things in general. You know what I mean? When it
Right.
comes to all, because there's so many really good topics when it comes to this where people had abductions. Because we talked about a couple of them already. Remember there was the Travis and Walton or whatever that guy's name. I don't know. I'm spacing out.
Travis Walton, yeah.
And then there was that other guy, which was another show suggestion, the Grinning Man stuff. Remember that?
Right.
And then we did a really good show. It was one of our first beginning ones when we were still learning how to do all this stuff and our mic quality wasn't as good. But we did that really good one about UFO throughout history and
Right.
with the government tie-ins and stuff. And that was a really
Exactly.
cool one. But we are going to do other stuff like with the Dulce base and all these other things. But tonight we're doing this because they were kind of like this was a viewer's request. So, we try to do our best, with what we can. We're not experts or anything. But, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think UFOs and aliens are real?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I've seen some pretty strange things up in the sky. I
When you were sober, right?
When I was sober, yeah,
Yeah.
I was absolutely sober, and I just you know, in the summertime out on the farm, when it was too hot to sleep in the house, we would just throw a mattress in the back of a pickup and lay there, and sleep outside and watch the sky.
Yeah.
And even my mother would see things up there. So my mother is kind of a believer in UFOs. But she's like me. She doesn't believe in little green men.
Right. I mean, it's kind of just stupid to think that we're the only planet that's inhabited, but
Exactly. I have said more than once, and I'm not going to get into a religious thing here, but I've always said this, the very first verse of the Bible says God created the heavens and the earth. What makes us so arrogant to think that this was the only planet he put life on?
yeah, but there are many people out there that would say, yes. And there's other people out there that have different opinions and viewpoints, which makes the world cool because you get to banter with a lot of people and just bounce
Right.
different ideas off. Because me and you are open. We're not like everything's this way and or my way or the highway, because that's not how we are. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true, and and anybody that knows me will tell you this. I am a very opinionated person, but I'm not so opinionated that I can't, that I don't believe in the possibility of a lot of things.
Right. I mean, because there's so many people who've had so many odd things occur, and
Right.
us having some friends who've had a variety of things. Like you have had Bigfoot run-ins. I've had a run-in, and so had Penny with the black-eyed being adult. You know what I mean? And
Right.
there's other people who've had like weird like dimensional run-ins with dimensional beings and stuff like that. So it's really hard to say one way or the other. And
Exactly.
it's I'm not the type of person who's gonna tell somebody like, I don't believe your story just because I didn't experience. I mean, who am I to say
Right.
they didn't have this? But just in the last 50 years, there've been millions of documented sightings of unidentified flying objects, meaning we don't know if it's from space or from here or whatever, but there are people who have reported seeing and experiencing these things in the sky, as well as having encounters of, I guess they call it, extraterrestrial beings.
Well, I have not seen an alien. I have seen a UFO. I have not seen an alien, but
Maybe you have and you don't
maybe I have and
know.
I don't know it.
Yeah.
I do wonder about some of my relatives though, but to my knowledge, I've never seen one. But like I said, I do not believe in little green men, and there are some people out there that do believe in them, and just because I don't, and they do, doesn't mean that I will ridicule them or tell them, oh, you're being stupid or whatever, because I do respect other people's opinions. But I do believe that when we do eventually encounter alien life,
Oh, yeah.
um,
Dom said
that we
UFAs and unidentified flying anomalies. Thank you, Dom.
I think that we're going to find out that they're going to be very similar to us. That's just my opinion and my theory on it.
Right. And that's okay. I mean, that's what makes the world awesome, because we can all banter and bounce ideas and theories and everything off each other. And, it's always good to think out of your own little backyard, because the world is so much bigger than our own fenced in yard. That's what I always think. But, with these, it's not just these. These are two really kind of popular ones that's really kind of hit the mainstream for sure. The two two topics we're talking about tonight. But I know there's so much out there where we've read a lot on in general that are extremely fascinating, and we're going to go more in depth with other things and stuff. And we're not here to tell any of you guys one way or the other, this is true or this is not true. It's your guys' decision, what you want to believe in or what you don't want to believe in. But, we just like to I don't know, talk about a lot of things, It
Yeah.
is what it is. So, do you want to should we just start it off then, or do you want to
Go ahead, you start off.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to talk about the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter. And I guess a lot of people consider this to be like a CE3, which is like a close encounter of the third kind, which basically means, and I'm sure everybody knows who's listening, is for those who probably don't know, I'm just saying, what they call it is, it's where you encounter with like some type of entity, which it's kind of like, it could be either humanoid, a robot, or like some type of human, but it's basically an occupant or a pilot in one of those unidentified flying objects. So
Right.
that's what like a CE3 is. It's considered a close encounter, meaning you've run in with somebody from one of these
It's
crafts
basically
that you
you've had
don't know.
a face-to-face encounter.
Yes, or
Okay.
what basically. But on August 21st in 1955, in the rural area of Christian County, Kentucky, in the little, it's basically like an unincorporated town of Kelly. That's what it's called. And it's between Kelly and located near the small city of Hopkinsville, which I think at the time I read somewhere that it had a population of maybe near 11,000 at that time in the 50s. What?
And it is also known for being a stop along the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, Hopkinsville is.
Right.
Now, both of these towns, at this point in August, were about to become worldwide known. You know what I mean? But what was happening was like, it was August 21st. It was nearing evening, and the Sutton family had like a farmhouse, and was on the old Madisonville Road, and that's basically in between Hopkinsville and Kelly. Now, Glenn Langford, she's 50. Now, she was the mom, of a lot of the people in the house here. And her children were Elmer Lucky Sutton, who was 25 at the time, J.C. Sutton, who was 21. There was Lonnie, who was 12. There was Charlotte, who was 10, and Mary, who was 7. And they also had Elmer had his wife, and so did John's wife was there too. And one of them's name was Vera. She was 29. And what was the other girl's name? Aline?
Aline, I think.
Yeah, she was 27. And also her brother was there at the time too. His name was O.P. Baker, and he was in his 30s. And they also had some friends from Pennsylvania. One guy's name was like Billy Ray Taylor, and his wife June. Now he was 21, she was 18. So that kind of gives you guys the idea of who was all in the house at the time or whatever. But anyway, they were all hanging out at the farmhouse, and they were all staying out there. And Lucky and his wife, along with the Taylors, they were visiting the farmhouse. They don't live there, but the people were, okay? But
Okay.
sorry, I'm kind of like rusty because we've been off the air for so long. But just give me a little bit, and I'll just get into my flow.
It takes a while to get back into the flow of things, so just go ahead. You're doing fine.
Anyway, on the evening of the 21st, around 7 p.m., the Billy Ray, he kind of headed out to the well to retrieve some water, because back then a lot of the people don't have running water and services in their house, So while he was standing out there at the well, he saw this bright light streak across the sky, and he noticed it was kind of like this flying craft, and he said that it skimmed across the treetops and it disappeared just behind the tree lines, which was sort of like a quarter of a mile away from the farm in like a ravine. So he grabbed the water and he goes racing back to the house, and he rushes inside like all excited, and he starts to tell everyone what he just saw. And, everybody who's there, like the family and his friends, they didn't really kind of believe him, and they kind of chuckled a little bit, and then they just continued on with like their night's events. And not long after, the family dog, he started barking, just freaking out, and said, just going on and on and on nonstop. So of course, Lucky and Billy, they both grabbed their guns, because you're in the country, right? And they head
That's
out.
right. And anytime you go check anything out, you grab your gun.
Well, if you're in the country and the dog's freaking out, and if you have livestock, obviously you're going to get your guns
Right.
and chase off whatever this predator might be. So they grab their guns and they start to head outside to see what the heck's got the dog all riled up. And more than likely, I think what they were expecting to see was, like I said, wildlife. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, anyway, the mom, Glenn, she looked out the window and she gasped, because what she saw approaching their home, it freaked her out. And by that time, Billy and Lucky kind of took a few steps out, and that's when they saw what she saw. And what they saw was, from the front door, they spotted something glowing as it was approaching the farmhouse from the field. And it was just a few feet away is what had this old dog fired up, you know what I'm saying? And they were walking up towards the house. These things were like 3 or 4 foot tall, kind of like the size of like a toddler, like a 4 or 5, 6-year-old kindergarten guy, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they were like extremely bizarre looking. This is what they were saying. They said, oh wait, I have a photo. I should throw that up. Sorry guys. But they were saying this thing had like large head, had almond-shaped eyes. It said it had a thin mouth and pointed ears with really long arms with kind of like claw-like fingers, and very short legs. And they said it seemed like it was wearing something made of like metallic type of clothing, because they said it was kind of like a dim, slightly shiny or silverish glow emitting around their bodies, and as it approached the farm. Well, both Billy and Lucky began to shoot at these things, and they said when they started shooting at it that the arms were up as though it was approaching them in a friendly manner. Kind of like, hey, arms up, don't shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
give.
I'm sorry. We're not trying to make fun of anybody. It just popped in my head. But
I surrender.
yeah, they're basically like, hey, we're not here to hurt you, we're coming up or whatever. But Billy fired his .22 at one of the creatures, and Lucky aimed and fired a shotgun in the direction of these beings. And one of the creatures did like this like ninja quick flip backwards, and it ran off in the woods. But it seemed like it was just kind of like frightened off. It didn't really get hurt, so it was kind of unharmed. And
Well, it was.
sorry.
I got that picture in my head now. But it was said though that the dog usually ran and that the dog actually ran and hid the rest of the night under the house. But back in the 50s and probably still today, it wasn't all that uncommon to pull out your gun and fire first before asking questions when it came to protecting yourself in the country from wildlife or even these supposed entities.
Right.
But back then, living in the country, and even today, Okay, you got something strange around your house. You're gonna grab your gun. Yeah, you don't do like they did back in the 50s and fire first and ask questions later, but
I don't know. Some people
you
still do.
well,
So
some people still do. I don't, but it. But
she only
I
shoots at
mean,
people she knows. Get off my property.
yeah, I only
Psh.
shoot at people I know, but they were probably thinking that they were going to go out and encounter coyotes or something, or even aren't there bears in Kentucky?
I don't know. I don't.
I think in the Appalachian
I
Mountains.
don't
This
think
this is
Kentucky
on the
really
other
has
side of the state,
bears.
so
They might
forget the
have. They
bears.
might have small black bears. That's about it. I don't think they really have massive, huge predators like they do up in Canada and Minnesota and stuff like that. You know.
Right.
But both of these men, they basically headed back inside the house to check on the welfare of the family, because they shot these things at these things. They kind of did like ninja things and took off and hid in the woods or whatever. So of course they ran inside because they wanted to make sure everybody was okay. They wanted to see how their family was. They wanted to see how their wife and girlfriends were. And just that's when it was said that one of these things peered in the window at the family, and that's when one of the men took a shot through the window screen and left like this huge hole in the front window. Well, then Lucky and Ray ran outside to see if they actually killed it, but they saw nothing below the front window. And that's when it was said that suddenly like this claw-like hand reached down from the roof and touched one of the men's hair and started screaming. They both turned around and began to fire their guns again, just like they're at war, you know what I'm saying? And as this thing, they were shooting at it, and this thing kind of just jumped off the roof, and they said it's almost like it floated to the ground and then ran off into the nearby woods. And they said in a nearby maple tree, another one of these things was just sitting there, and they turned and took aim and fired at his shotgun at that one. And that creature, they said they knocked it down, but it scurried off into the woods. And to the side of them, there was another creature that kind of came around the side of the house, and they said it was nearly like right in front of them, and they took an aim and shot at that one too at a close range, and they heard like this sound as though the bullets hit metal, which is weird because it's almost like they're saying that this thing had some type of armor on, like a suit, right, where it wasn't just flesh then. And they said this creature seemed to be unharmed and it ran off. So either they're like really crappy shooters, you know what I mean? Or
it must have been because from the sounds of it, they were shooting up the house.
Well, no. Well, if you think about it, because it was running, these things are running all over the roof and everything else.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Billy Ray, did you get that some bitch? No, but I shot a hole in the roof.
No swearing. Remember? We have to try not to swear on the show.
Sorry. I apologize. I read that during the siege, though, that these beings had often glided or floated from one place to the next.
Right, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I found that interesting, too. And that if and when they did run, their legs didn't seem to bend, but rather their movement was more from the hips. And
I don't even want to comment on that, but yeah.
I don't want to comment on that either, because I know when I walk, my hips work. But anyway,
no, their legs didn't work, but their hips were moving. It almost gives you
I know it's
a wrong thought.
Little stiff-legged things running. And every time that they were hit or aggressively yelled at, that their body seemed to emit more light.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating too.
True, or just the authors sensationalized this story more for the readers. I don't know.
Well, right. Well, here's the thing. So they're shooting at this stuff, and they say that these things seem to be like it didn't even affect him. It's like either they, like we said, they had bad aim, or these things just aren't affected by bullets. Then they said there was one that was super close up at one point, and when they hit it, it sounded like it was hitting metal. And then, like you said, every time they shot at them or was projecting negative anger, yelling towards them, these things would emit more light around their body.
Right.
I think that's kind of interesting. But when I was reading the story, it said both Lucky and Ray at that time, after kind of battling them there, they took off and returned back into the house, and they shut the door, and they both stayed armed. But these entities, although they only kind of seemed to see 2 or 3 at the time when they were outside, it seemed like there were a heck of a lot more, because at that point they said that these entities began to harass the whole family and friends. They were peering from one window to the next. They were like jumping around on the roof and all those other things. It was almost like they said that it was seeming like they were trying to play a game, or they were like
Right.
taunting the adults or their children within the home. And then at that point, Lucky and Ray took several more shots within the home, so it's been reported. And out at these creatures, they shot through the roof, they shot through their walls, they shot through the windows. But every time it seemed like these things didn't even really get affected by their weapons. And they said that this went on for several hours, that these things were stalking and harassing, which reminds me of that werewolf Bigfoot show we talked about, when those creatures were harassing that family in, what was it, Portland or whatever? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I
they
think it
kept
was.
harassing and stalking the outside of their house, but their guns were locked up in the barn. But I bet you they don't do that anymore. But but it seemed like I said, these things were harassing them for hours, and they tried to get the kids to go to sleep. They were covering the kids up with blankets and everything else, but these things would go from the upstairs windows to the other windows, and finally at one point, all of them just said, okay, we're going to do this. You're going to hit this car, you're going to go in this car, we're going to go in this car, and we're just going to take off and go get help. So they all ran outside, shoved the kids in the car, and they all took off to go get help from the authorities. And I think that's when they just basically went to Hopkinsville, which the police station, I think they said, was like 8 miles away. And by that time, because like I said, it started at like 7 or something, by this time it was already 11 o'clock. And Ray and Lucky, they went in the police station, and the rest of them stayed in the car, and they were, or maybe some of them came in. But anyway, they pleaded with Sheriff Russell Greenwell to come out to their place and help aid the family against what they considered as a threat by, 12 to 15 weird-looking creatures, And they said it came from a spaceship that landed not from their place, and they were, panicked when they were explaining this to the sheriff about how they were trying to protect themselves, and they were shooting at them for nearly 4 hours. And the sheriff, of course, listening to this crazy story, but because everybody seemed really sincere and really panicked, he decided that he was going to go and check it out. So him, Sheriff Russell Greenwell, another guy named T.C. Gross, Doris Franson, Gray Sattler, and I think 4 other city police officers all followed out to the Sutton farm. And as they were heading out there, they were talking over like their CVs and stuff, saying that, supposedly they're like these little green men out harassing this family. And that's when a couple other guys overheard it on the CB, and they joined in the incident. There was a couple state troopers, like a guy named was R.N. Ferguson, G.W. Riley, Deputy Sheriff George Batts. And so it was like this huge motorcade that was heading out back towards Kelly.
Well, and as well as a few MPs from Fort Campbell.
Yeah, that's true, because I heard too. So from town to county to state to Army military police, there was probably over 20-some men that arrived at the Sutton farm around 11-something. And they began to search like the entire area for any signs of this spacecraft or these little strange, whatever you want to call them.
These strange little beings.
Yeah, entities or whatever.
Entities.
Yeah, but at the time, when they were all roaming about, and it's dark, maybe they don't even know what to look for. Maybe they didn't believe them, who knows. But at the time they said no one...
Maybe they didn't look very well.
Right, but they said at the time no one seemed to find any kind of trace or track that may have kind of shown that a spacecraft had landed in the area or near the house, or any tracks of the said creatures.
Well, one newspaper wrote that the only excitement the authorities had that night is when one of the MPs accidentally stepped on a cat's tail in the darkness, right, and the cat let out this painful cry, and it caused all the men got excited when they heard this cat let out this yell, that they pulled out their pistols and they ran about not knowing what happened at first.
Yeah, could you imagine 20-some guys pulling all their guns out because they hear some cat screaming in pain, and they're like, holy crap, it's, alien invasion.
What in the world was that?
Yeah, that's definitely when you think, okay, I'm going to get shot. But it was like after they said that these guys were searching, I guess, till like 2 a.m. And they, at that time they started questioning everybody in the house. And supposedly, because this is from the newspaper articles and stuff, it said it was determined that no one was drunk, and that they were visibly upset by something. But, of course, it's hard to it's hard to believe a little creature is running around like this, you know what I mean? But
Right.
a lot of the officials went and started questioning the neighbors nearby, and the neighbors had admitted that they, too, had seen a weird, strange light streak across in the sky, and that they did hear gunfire from the Sutton's Farms direction, but no one had seen any signs of this little guys or their craft. But they did notice, the officials that they did say that they did see gun holes in the window screen and the house. So not
I
long,
bet they did.
right?
What
So,
was left of the house.
well, I don't know if this truly did happen. I probably would do the same thing too, just to protect my family and my friends who are and my mom who's in the
I'm
house.
not making fun of these people, okay? I'm really and truly not.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it amusing that they were shooting the house up.
Yeah, but if
I mean, this was where
they
they
obviously they
lived.
had to be panicked,
Yeah, well, that's true. Because when you're in that bad of a panic, you don't know what you're going to do.
Right. But supposedly they were there for like a good couple hours, and it was around, I think, like 2 a.m. or whatever. And they, that's when they decided, they were just going to head off. So the authorities because they did everything they could. They didn't see anything from what they could tell. I mean, it's nighttime, you're in the woods, and if something wants to, it can blend in and you're not going to even see it.
Right.
And who knows if these things, because there's other cases and stories where they admit that these things had devices or things that help them cloak. So if this did happen, maybe these things had certain technology that let them cloak themselves into or their craft, and maybe when there was too many people around and they didn't want all these people to be, find their stuff or whatever.
Right.
But like I said, after the guys left, all the search party and who was coming to help, this is when the Sutton family and and friends and stuff, they went back in the house and they're just trying to relax if they could. And that's when they said that these things came back. And it wasn't long after, and then they kept up harassing this family. They kept peering in all the different windows. They were like just making noises on the walls and on the roof and all that stuff. And again, of course, the guys, they grabbed their guns and they began firing at these things again. And from what I've read in the newspapers and everything else, and from their stories, because newspapers always change the story to sell
Right.
the story.
Well,
And
they'll sensationalize it just to sell their papers.
right. Anyway, so they were shooting at these things because they were all frightened. They were trying to protect their family, even though the things weren't really hostile or seemed to be hostile. But it's frightening enough to them. And they said it was about sunrise is when it seemed that it all ended and these things were no longer seen or heard by the family. Well, the next morning, a few of the Air Force personnel and officers returned, and they found out by the family that these entities had returned not long after everybody had left and harassed them again till dawn. Well, all these men again went looking around for any clues other than the bullet holes, of course, but their search ended again with no results. But I don't even know what they could be looking for. I mean, maybe if these things were kind of floating, they wouldn't leave any footprints.
Right.
Or tracks or whatever you want to call it.
You would think, though, that there would be evidence that the spaceship had landed. Though, I mean, grass.
Oh yeah,
and
I'm gonna
stuff
come.
being
Oh yeah, but I'm
down.
gonna come up to that. I'm gonna come up to that in a little bit here too. Oh yeah, Don was talking about lizard people. We're gonna be talking about those too in a different episode. But the thing is, maybe they are Army officials, so maybe they did find something, but they reported they saw nothing too. You have to remember who they're working for, right?
Right.
So they're like, well, sorry guys, we don't see nothing. And by that time, Ray and Lucky, they had to leave because they had to do some business that morning in Evansville in Indiana. But all the other people were still there in the house. And they were taken aside, each one individually, and spoke to separately to see if they could kind of break them to really find out the truth, just like cops do.
Yeah.
And whatever.
Interrogated them.
Basically, and to get to the real story. But what it turned out is everybody gave the exact same story, and they all witnessed and experienced the same thing of this nightly siege by these unknown entities. And when they were telling their story, some of these drawings were made of these beings, and all of them described it the same. Although I think over time, because when I was reading some of the real articles of the stories of the guys telling it, the description of the creature sounded more like, those little gray aliens. It sounded more like that than the picture that's kind of showing up. I think the picture's kind of been elaborated over time a little bit, but then everybody's kind of got their own interpretation when they're sketching things too.
True.
But like they said, everybody gave the same, traumatic story and the same description of these creatures, except for a couple of the kids who were forced under mattresses and blankets because the mom was protecting their kids, Glenn.
Right.
And anyway, so many of the children didn't see it, but a lot of the adults did. And the mom, like I said, she hid her kids under the bed mattresses and blankets in order to protect them the best that she could while the men were shooting off guns. That alone's scary to see on its own.
Oh, really?
But in the statement to Deputy Sheriff Batts, it was mentioned by one of the men that they had already gone through like 4 bricks or 4 boxes, for those who don't know, of bullets. I call them bricks. Other people do too, because it's like 100.
Well, the difference between a brick of bullet and a box of bullet, a box usually holds about 50.
Right, and a brick's like 100.
Brick has like 500 bullets.
Oh, 500. Well, whatever. You know what I'm saying. But they went through like 4 boxes, and they're like 22 shells or whatever. But by the time the local newspaper reporter came, they arrived at the farm. Well, it was already on the local radio station, and many other reporters from Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, they all became arriving over into this area because, of course, they want to get their papers out there first.
Right.
And it just spread like wildfire across the country. And soon the Sutton farm was under siege by all these people. Because remember when we talked about the other alien stories or whatever, all of a sudden everybody across the country had to come to those people's places. And there'd be hundreds of people just parking up and down the dirt roads. And they'd start walking through their fields.
Right.
And just trampling everything and coming up to the house and threatening them or making fun of them or demanding, this or that or whatever.
Or just coming in and out of their house.
Yeah, wanting to find proof themselves, wanting to talk to them, wanting to harass them, there's so many types of people that come to weird things that happen when it's reported. And not just UFO things, but any stuff that kind of gets on the news. You end up getting all these people coming, even for paranormal stuff. You know that.
Right.
Like that one house, those people had to try to change the outside of the house to try to get people to stop coming. Well, all these people were roaming on their farmland. They were messing about their house, snapping pictures of the family and the farmhouse, just making rude comments, making comical remarks. They were humiliating the family, saying that they created a hoax about seeing little green men from space. They were people, just saying, you're just doing this trying to make money and just all that kind of stuff. Well, at that point, the Sutton family stopped speaking of their experience altogether because they just refused to talk to anybody anymore, with the exception of Isabel Davis, which was years later. But at that point, the people were treating this family so poorly. And they were calling them like lowlifes, carny folks. You made this whole thing up, you staged it all and everything just to make money. But the family never made a single dime off their story.
Yeah, but of course, that others made money off their story, like newspapers and such. And the first newspaper report was published on August 22nd, the next day. From the Kentucky New Era, and soon was followed by other cities. The New York Daily, Spacemen Take Kentucky, was their headline, and the Los Angeles Times, I think their headline was like, Kentucky Gains New Fame.
Yeah.
But all of them made money off of this story, but the Sutton family never made not so much as a dime from it.
No. But these people only suffered like humiliation and mocking from people, not just strangers, but their people in the area.
Right.
They were being accused of being liars and drunks and scammers. I mean, you name it. And it wasn't just Lucky and Ray. It was his mother and the children. And, they were a good Kentucky family. They went to church. They had some schooling. Back then, country folk, they're not about bringing attention to themselves, and especially this type of attention, you know what I mean? But not a single one of their stories ever changed over the years until their death. Well, until they died. It didn't change when they died, but you know what I'm saying? It was all
Yeah.
up till they died. Nothing ever changed. It stayed the same as their first statements to the authority that night. Because you know why? When you have these experiences, like you did with your Bigfoot encounter and me with my black-eyed being adult, I mean, it's almost like you're reliving it. You're like right there again, and you could, say that could remember the smell of the summer wind or what you were wearing or the temperature,
Right.
everything in great detail. And they did the same thing. They never ever changed anything, and it's almost like it haunted them.
Even their smallest detail stayed the same.
Right. Which over time, if they were lying, the story would have gotten more grandiose. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But the Sutton family and others were not the only ones to have seen a spaceship in that area. It was noted in a newspaper article that a Sergeant Dudas, whatever, Dudas, Dudas, he was one of 2 police officers that had actually reported seeing 3 different flying saucers early one morning, just the previous summer, and made a statement that he believed the Suttons were more than likely telling the truth based on the fact that he saw that if he saw 3 different crafts, that their story could be true. Now, someone said on a website that the term little green men came from a newspaper headline with someone trying to be witty with their words with Kelly and green. But the family never stated once they were green, only that they gave off a slight silver shine. And like you said, they never made money off of their experiences, but who knows how many people did since 1955 until now. But the Sutton family never did. So it was stated several times over the years by the family and friends of them that they never made a dime.
I don't know. What do you think about that part, what you were just saying personally? Your personal opinion.
On what I just said?
Yeah.
I'd probably have an opinion if I could remember what I just said.
About them not making any money. About the 3 different flying saucers seen earlier that morning by the 2 police officers.
This police officer said that he had actually seen 3 different flying saucers one morning just the previous summer. Now, this is a guy of standing. I don't know what kind of people the Sutton family were. I don't know if they were poor. I don't know if they were wealthy. I don't know what they were. But a police officer, usually you would take their words on that. And he did believe that the family was telling the truth.
Right.
And I believe that they were telling the truth, okay? Because for the simple fact that their story never changed. Not one thing in their story changed. And I think that a lot of what these reporters and this sheriff and everything was brought skepticism to them was the fact that the kids saw nothing. But then again, the kids were hidden under beds. They were hidden under a mattress. And the fact that the Sutton family never made a dime off of this tells me that they were telling the truth, that they did see something, and something that scared the
pajamas
crap out of them.
Pajamas. Remember, we're trying not to swear. We're trying to be good, just so minors can watch the show. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what actually happened at Kelly, Kentucky that night? I don't know. What did they see in the sky? Billy Ray, did he see this weird unidentified craft? I mean, who knows? I mean, were they like these weird humanoid beings? Where did they come from? I don't know.
Well, some claimed at that time that these things were... This makes me laugh, sorry. But there were some at the time that claimed that these things were escaped monkeys from a traveling circus or a nearby zoo. And although there was no proof of this particular theory, but everybody has to come up with one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And others made statements that the family was harassed by owls who were being protective of their territory. And if that was the case, why is it
Wait,
that as long as
but
the family lived
well,
there,
no,
this
but
only happened once?
right, but you know, both people, they all lived in the country. Okay, some of them had education. They were religious people. They ran a farm. I think they would know what an owl or a monkey looked like.
Exactly.
I mean, both Lucky and Ray worked at a carnival. I mean, I don't believe those two explanations. I think they would have known if that is what they were encountering that. I think you know when an owl's swooping down at you. I think you know if it's a freaking monkey. Oop, whatever.
And if it was a monkey or an owl, why would they on purpose shoot holes in the walls and the roofs and the windows of their home? I mean, it took them
Okay.
over a year to repair it all, which caused them a pretty good financial strain over the years just to repair their home. I mean, these guys saw something that put them in a panic. And you know, it's not easy to put
A
to put
grown men.
grown men into a panic like that.
Right. And not even farm mothers or wives. I mean, okay, you got women who ran farms and worked on farms, and obviously, you know, the dad was gone. She was taking all care of all the family. They're hardcore. They're not just like, oh, I mean, they were hard workers.
No,
They
I'm not.
plowed, they gardened, they milked cows. They were out there all day long just working just as hard as men
and they
do.
know the
So,
wildlife on their land. Now, I'm
right.
not saying that farm people are more knowledgeable than city people. Don't get me wrong about that. But especially back in the 50s, these were hardcore people. They were hard workers because farm work was harder back then.
It's a hard period.
It's
But
hard
it is harder.
period, exactly. But it was really hard back then.
Well, yeah, because you don't have tractors and all these other cool stuff now.
And you know, we're talking about people who were they were workers.
Right.
They were stout people, and they knew.
I don't hear you say that word daily.
Stout.
Yeah, I know. She's trying to use extra words today.
And they know the wildlife on their property.
Well, it also in the area. I mean, everybody.
And in the area, exactly.
It don't matter if you're in the
Exactly.
country or whatever. You know what lives in your neighborhood. Like that's stupid.
right.
Know the people in your
Exactly.
neighborhood. Stupid ass Sesame Street got stuck in my head. But you know what? Why would the Sutton family make up a story that only ended up ruining their lives? I mean, they made
Right.
no money from this story. He did not seek any public publicity or any fame. They didn't want any of that. They kind
No,
of
they
wanted
didn't.
it to go away, and it didn't. It just took off like
And you know,
gas on fire.
if they had not have been so scared, and if they hadn't panicked like they did and shoot holes in their house like they did,
I can't say
they
I wouldn't have done the
would have
same
never
thing.
said a word about it.
I
Probably
can't,
not.
But we can't say that we wouldn't have done the same thing.
And some say that one didn't see a spacecraft, that it was only a meteor that he had seen, since there were a few that did occur that year in that area, even though he stated that he actually saw the craft and it was not just a streak of light. He saw this thing go over the trees, and it probably more than likely went over the house.
Right. Because when we're reading all the different newspaper articles, because I try my best to go, not just to go off of what people are blogging, but we really do try to Google, look for newspaper. It's cooler now because you can find all the really old newspapers that go way back, some of them
Right.
to the 1800s, but we have better luck now finding them nowadays, not where before, so we can really find more of the information, but I noticed a lot of the newspaper articles were changing the story over the years as it was going on, just to keep their paper selling and stuff, but, I mean, there's just been so many theories and so many speculations from the books, from the newspapers to the website forums to people discussing this incident, you know.
Yeah. Well, one far-fetched theory was the possibility of a secret military experiment with holograms to these creatures coming from a different realm or dimension, and that they somehow crossed over through a natural tear or man-made shift in the dimensional walls. Now, that's quite a far-fetched theory for that time. But and of course a secret military experiment. That's always the standard explanation.
Right. Well, I don't know, because it's kind of interesting, but if you think about it, in the 50s, there was a lot of things going on secretly with the military. And in the 50s, the UFO things was really big because of things
Yes, it was.
about things that we'll mention a little bit later in the show, but we did talk about it on one of our earlier shows, the UFO sightings stuff throughout history with government involvement, because we kind of hit on every little topic that show, and it got
Right.
pretty deep. But
You sure did.
but could it have been a military hologram of these? But why would they pick them? Why would the military go to that length?
I
just to
really
mess
don't think that
with them?
technology was advanced enough for them to experiment with holograms.
We don't know. You don't.
Well, we don't know.
You
That's
don't
true.
know.
We don't know.
Don't say we. Maybe I know everything.
I don't know.
Maybe I know everything, and I'm just keeping it under wraps until
I
one
know
day.
you're keeping everything a big secret from all of us.
Yes, because I'm so awesome. But I don't know. I mean, all we do know is that Billy Ray Taylor was the first to reportedly make a statement that he saw this flying craft around 7 p.m. And it was just above the tree line. We know that. But he did make in statements where he was talking, where some of these people did actually write down what he said. He did say he heard a weird hissing sound as it landed just a quarter mile away from the farm. Now, they did have some kind of encounter that occurred with, I don't know, unknown entities from a supposed spacecraft, which lasted for hours. We know that
Right.
they talked about saying they had several bullet holes in the Sutton place, from the walls to the roofs and to the windows. This is what we
Right.
know, okay?
Well, years later, one of Lucky's children, her name was, I think, Geraldine Hawkins, said that her father was telling the truth and that no one was drinking that night, and that her parents even took them out to that very spot 20 years later, and that's where they saw a large, round, burnt out spot in the field.
Yeah, his
Or
kid.
she said this like 20 years later.
Well,
But
yeah.
and even though her father may have had a job with the carnival, he and the others did not make up their experience, nor would they ever intentionally bring that kind of attention or humiliation to their family and friends.
Oh, yeah.
And that he often never wanted to speak about the incident, and that it frightened him badly, and that he could recall in great detail all of the events that took place all the way up until his death. And she stated that her father was an honest, hardworking man who experienced something many never do. And when they went for help and people caught wind of their story, they were mocked. They were called liars.
Right.
And this family was treated very poorly for years.
Oh, yeah.
And she said
Harassed.
this, yeah, and harassed. And she said that this was really hard on her father.
I'm sure, could you imagine the mother could you imagine wanting to go to church after this?
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know if they continued to go to church after this. The mother alone, what do they call the matriarch? Is that what it is?
The matriarch, yes.
Yeah, I mean, she's got more long standing, especially in church and everything else, and they
Right.
probably just ran her off.
And from what I read, she was a very religious woman and a church-going woman.
There's just so much to this that they didn't benefit from this at all. It ruined their lives. And you know what? It happens to a lot of people. A lot of people, who share their experiences, they get attacked. They get ridiculed. They get put down. And for years, even on the internet, people are bullied and attacked.
Right.
For anything. And you think on here we should come together and support each other and just banter back and forth and learn from each other, because everybody subscribes to their own truths, okay? So some people are just always going to be one way no matter what, but it's just like, as on here, I like coming on here because we're meeting so many great people. Like, we don't call the people who come to our show fans. I always call them like friends, because I'm learning so much from them just in the bantering in the show and what they talk to us outside of the show too. But when it comes to this Kelly-Hopkinsville, incident. I mean, it just became famous so quickly, overnight
Right.
and over time. And even though the papers may have added like color to the story, and the Suttons and the Taylor stories, they never ever changed.
Right.
Or wavered. So it seems to be obvious that they had an encounter with someone or some things that seemed to be unidentified or unexplainable to them or others. You know,
Right.
Was it from here? Was it from space? Was it from another dimension? Was it from the inner earth? It's unknown, okay? But this case has been one of the top reports in the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book, okay, which has cataloged more than 12,000 UFO sightings in the United States between, I think it was like 1952 to like almost 1970. Now, this story remains to be one of the most famous, like I said, close encounter of the third kind to date. Now, true or not, we're not sure. But it seems that something occurred, alien, owl, or just insane monkeys on a rampage. You know what I mean? Or a military experiment gone wrong. We're going to just leave that up to you guys, our listeners, to decide. But I really don't think it was insane monkeys that escaped.
I don't think it was insane monkeys.
But wouldn't that'd be me more jacked up? Could you imagine just be like chilling at home? You come home to hang out with your mom and your siblings and have some friends over, and then all of a sudden
your house is
rampage
by insane monkeys.
Yeah, insane monkeys, like 12 to 15 insane monkeys that float and glow, and you shoot at them and they just the bullets ping off them like Superman.
Right.
I mean, I'd shoot up my house alone for that, just to get rid of these
Maybe
things.
they were from Krypton.
What? Oh.
Krypton.
Wait.
Isn't that where Superman's from?
Well, you could ask the chatters. There's a bunch of them, and they're comic experts for sure. And comics are cool too, but I don't know. I don't think it's insane monkeys. I don't think it was a freaking owl. You know what owls look like? Owls don't glow. Okay, their eyes kind of have like a weird yellowish orange glows, but everybody knows it's not owls. They obviously had encountered something. I think maybe the military came in and took over. That's why they're pulling everybody separate, because they wanted to get the true facts. Because I think they may have known about this encounter.
I think the military, since they had Project Blue Book going at that time, I think the military may have believed them. But they're not about to let them know that they believe them.
Well, listen, if the military had their technology that they do at the time or whatever else, they're probably pinged up or picked up on some crafts. And, police officers have reported over the years since, I don't even know, we'll just say the dawn of time, have reported seeing UFOs and other things when they're out on their shifts. I mean, you've seen something when you were a trucker. It wasn't alien, but you've seen strange things in the sky yourself. So, I mean, when you're out on the roads late at night, you can see lots of things. So, this cop saw 3 different alien crafts, he called it alien crafts, around the same time that the Sutton family and the Taylors had these experiences. So, I don't know. I mean, also, for those of you guys who might be interested, who knows, some people like to travel and do stuff during the summer or whatever, and for those who are listening now and for those who listen in later,
if you happen to be in Kelly, Kentucky,
let me talk. But if you want to, you can go to Kelly, Kentucky, and they're actually holding like their 6th annual Little Green Men Day Festival on Friday, August 19th, 2016, and August 20th. And if you want to go check it out, they do have all the details and the directions and everything at their website, which is like www.kellyky.com.
That'll give you something. See, you can put that on your bucket list.
Well, yeah, why not? If you're going to go paranormal hopping during the summer, why not go? I mean, there's people who go UFO hunting. Why not? It's cool. I'd actually do everything if I had the money, but I haven't won that lottery yet, and nobody's just said, here, have a sack of money. So we can only just dream and or talk about it. But
that's true.
I just, if you guys are interested, go check it out. Or if you guys live near Kentucky or in Kentucky, go check it out and let us know. But, they have like bands. They do They tell about the story. They have, except there's no drinking. Anybody caught drinking on the premises will be escorted out. I did see that. That was big, bold. So obviously they must have had some previous years where everybody was just having a little bit too much fun and kind of ruined it for the rest of us.
They were probably imitating those insane monkeys.
Maybe. I don't know. Do you want to like take a quick break for yourself?
Yes, we're going to take a quick break.
All right. For those of you who are listening, we're just going to take a quick intermission for like 3 minutes. So if you guys want to stretch, get a drink of water, get a snack, have a smoke, we'll be right back. And then we're going to finish the second half of our viewer request story and go into the Aurora, Texas thing. And I just want to say I'm glad that you guys came and hung out with us. I'm very grateful that you guys share in our show and you banter with us. But we'll be back in 3 minutes and finish the second half of our show. Welcome back to Anything But Ordinary with Spooky and Raven. See, I can get the title right of our show.
I can't believe I said anything but paranormal.
I know. We do paranormal. What are you talking about? She's
I know.
Trying to throw everybody off.
But I just screwed up that intro. I mean, bad.
Bad.
Yeah.
We did a show one time, it was a long time ago, and I was trying to say something else, and I bad like a sheep. I don't know how that came out of my mouth, but it did, and we laughed. Like, wasn't that no, it wasn't. It was the Civil War show. Talk about, every once in a while, random words come out of our mouth. We don't even know we're going to say it, and we crack up. But welcome back to our second half of alien encounters with the Aurora, Texas incident and the Hopkinsville, Kentucky incident. Now, we just got done talking about the Hopkinsville, Kentucky one, and you know what? I kind of believe their story, okay? It's like you're not going to put yourself through that much hell, you know, and just be ruined the rest of your life like that, you know? And I bet you they regret it to this day ever saying anything, you know? But I want to thank the viewer who did message us and suggest these show topics, and we do have all the old ones down. We're going to do a show about the Men in Black. We're going to do ones about the underground bases. We're going to do a show about the inner earth. We're going to do another show about time travel with the John Teeter and all these other things. There's so many things that we're going to talk about, and hopefully we'll be getting to them in a good routine this summer. But I don't know. What do you think? You think that was legit, right? Probably from your
I believe them. I believe that they saw something that just scared the pajamas right off of them.
There's probably some men would like some of the pajamas to fall off people, but
but it just seemed like, you know, I mean, if these people had set out to make money off of this, then I would have doubt. But they got to the point they wouldn't even speak about it, and they were harassed, but they stuck to their story.
Well, their story never changed.
Their story never changed.
It was legit. When you have something that you cannot explain and it leaves a lasting impression on you, you remember everything in great
That's right.
detail,
You sure do.
but you can't remember what you went into the kitchen for, you know? So
That's true.
You know, I just want to say, just say a quick hello to everybody. I want to say thank you guys for coming. We do see you. We can't always interact on the chat, but we do appreciate everybody coming in. We do appreciate you guys sharing us with others. I love the banter that's going on in there. You know, even if it's not on the show topic, it's still kind of cool some of the things you guys are saying.
And anybody that says anything to me in chat, I'm not ignoring you. My chat's not working right.
Yeah, you can't forget your
So I don't catch everything that's said to me, but I do want to thank everybody for coming in.
Right, and giving our show a like and sharing us. But do you want to kind of go into the Aurora, Texas incident now?
Okay, I think I will. Aurora, Texas. This is a story that has endured for over 100 years. And to this day, researchers are still trying to find proof that this story is true or if it's just a hoax. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Aurora, Texas is a small town in North Texas, just off Highway 287 and 1 mile south of State Highway 114. Mm-hmm. Today, it has fewer than 500 residents, but in 1897, the population was around 2,000. Now, that was considered large for a town in that era. But Aurora was dying out. The cotton crop all but failed. There was sickness. The railroad bypassed the town, and people were just moving away.
Wasn't the town at one point like basically almost a ghost town? Really?
Oh yeah. It was. The population had shrunk from, like I said, around 2,000, you know, down to basically what it is now. But on April 17th in 1897, in the early morning hours, something happened that put this town in the center of an unusual event and one of the earliest documented encounters with an alien life form.
Okay, sorry. I'll hold my question for later. I'll write it down. I just had a quick thing, but I'll hold it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, as the story goes, on April 17th in 1897, now some places you'll read it says April 19th, so...
But you were doing digging to find out...
I was doing digging about this, and some research came up with April 17th, some came up with April 19th. But anyway, in around April 17th in 1897, a slow-moving spaceship crashed into a windmill on the property of Judge J.S. Proctor, and it burst into pieces. Now, people claim that while searching through the debris, they found the body of this so-called pilot. The townspeople buried this pilot in the local cemetery. They gave him a Christian burial and a headstone. And that's it. End of story.
What?
Or is it?
Well, what? You're like so regiment all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You need to slow down.
End of story. Or
That's
is
it.
it?
Story's over. Well,
That's
that
it.
was a short
Story's
one.
over.
That sucks.
Well, a reporter for the Dallas Morning News, his name was S.E. Hayden, he wrote an article that is still in existence today. And he reported that around 6 a.m. on the morning of the 17th, some of the residents had witnessed an airship traveling due north. Mm-hmm. And it was described as shaped like a cigar, and it seemed to be made of, let's see if I can get this word out. I never could pronounce this word.
I know.
Aluminum.
That's why I was giggling.
And silver. You were waiting for it, weren't you?
Yes. Sorry.
It appeared that some of the machinery was out of order, and the ship was traveling close to Earth at about only 10 to 12 miles an hour. And it had sailed over the public square, and at the north end of town, it collided with the tower of Judge Proctor's windmill, and it burst into pieces with a loud explosion.
The windmill did.
The windmill and I guess the
spaceship.
Spaceship.
That must have been one heck of a built windmill if it could take out a spacecraft.
Really?
If that's coming from space, you think they would build it a little bit better, because they're gonna fight meteors and space alien wars and everything else. I'm just assuming space is awesome, but go on.
Well, excuse me. Debris was scattered over several acres. And the pilot of the ship was the only one on board, and even though the body was badly disfigured, there was enough of it to see that it was not of this world. Now, for some reason, this story was not good enough to gather national attention, and the story soon died out. And in fact, there are those today who believe that this entire incident is a hoax, or just do not believe it ever happened. So we're going to explore both sides of this argument.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, between 1895 and 1898, there was a rash of airship sightings between California and the Midwest. And that's what they were called back then, airships. Now, there were literally hundreds of sightings, and 108 sightings were reported in Texas alone.
Well, I guess I thought they were called something else, but I think, if I remember right, I think there was also sightings in Sacramento, in California, which everybody knows where these things are. Okay, there was also some in Washington, and Hastings, Chicago, Springfield, Michigan, Iowa. You know, there's just a bunch of them, okay? I could go down a bunch of lists around this time. There's, like, so many in the same time period that were having these unknown flying things going on, you know?
Exactly. One of the witnesses in Aurora made the statement that the airship was traveling closer than usual to the Earth. So this was not the first sighting over Aurora. And apparently the people assumed that this was the same airship that they had been seeing. So from what I gathered from that statement alone was that there had been several sightings of these so-called airships over this town. Now, a few days later, Judge Proctor cleared up the debris. And there is really no record of what he did with the majority of it. But some of it is said that he threw it down an abandoned well. Now, a record search did reveal that a Judge J.S. Proctor did own that property. But according to the surveyor documents of that time, they showed no buildings or even a windmill on the property. But there was an old well, and according to local legend, for the next 50 years, now this was after he had thrown this stuff down this well, for the next 50 years, anyone who drank water from that well, they were stricken with a strange illness.
Right.
And this illness would alter and misshape their bodies.
Well, wait.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, anybody who drank from the well area
After this
incident,
crash,
which a lot of people now say it's like radiation poisoning, and that they
right,
were being affected and having not just them but their offsprings or whatever the heck you want to call it also were
right,
affected by this. So
right. Eat pregnant women, their unborn children. They were having kids, that were deformed.
well, that's radiation poisoning, you know,
Right.
and who knows what else supposedly.
So in 1957, the well was capped and it was never used again. Now, in the Aurora Cemetery, the grave of this so-called pilot is unmarked. Now, I believe it was in the late 1940s or the early 1950s. There was a headstone, and this is the time when and at this time also, the military came in and took all of the souvenirs because the people who had gone out to the wreckage site,
Yeah.
they were picking up these strange pieces of metal and whatever, as souvenirs.
See, that's the thing. In the 40s and the 50s, it's almost like they were these military men, if they were military or non-military, okay, but I'll talk about that a little bit. But they were basically going and harassing these people, demanding if there was these like you called them souvenirs.
These
Taking
so-called
them.
souvenirs
They
of the
didn't
wreckage.
say, "Oh, just hand it over and here's a
Well, they
a
told them
sucker."
that they wanted to examine them.
Yeah.
And so they took whatever they found, and the items were never returned.
But
They
sometimes,
just,
but back in the 40s and the 30s and the 50s, you did willingly help out your military and your police
yeah,
officers
you
and stuff
did.
because you respected authority
Well,
somewhat.
that
Then
was
some
well,
people.
yeah, especially during the 40s because that's when World War II was taking place. And everybody at that time were patriotic. But like I said, it was the late 1940s or early 1950s is when the military
Started
went in
going
there
yeah, and taking
and
these
took
things.
all of the so-called souvenirs
Right.
under the pretense that they were just going to examine them. They wanted to see this, and examine it all. And there were actually quite a few people that had pieces of this wreckage, but they never returned any of it.
Shocker, huh?
Yeah, shocker.
They do that with our money too. Let me just take this money. You'll see it later. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Never.
and also, this was also, if you remember, of course, neither one of us was around at the time, but it was after
Maybe we
the
are. Maybe we're like hundreds of years old. Maybe we're vampires. So maybe
yeah.
I have been. Maybe
But
I'm
in
alien.
19 yeah, but they did this after the Roswell incident, which
Right.
was in 1947.
Yeah. So it's been said.
So it's been said. They wanted to exhume the grave of the pilot, but Aurora fought against it and even went as far as to post a police guard on it. Now, at that time, and the military swore that they would go to court to do this, but Aurora won. And like I said, at this time there was a tombstone on the grave. And after 2 weeks, when things quieted down, the police guard was pulled away from the cemetery, and that same night the tombstone disappeared and was never seen again. So that when the police guard was taking off this grave, they removed the tombstone.
Well, wasn't like in 2010. I think I read somewhere someone put another stone on the grave, or maybe not exactly in the right spot, but they thought it was like the spot, so they just put a new marker down for the location of the supposedly lost grave.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Right, but that stone contained a crudely carved image of a cigar-shaped craft with lights along the side. But in 2012, that stone also disappeared. So, and there have been others through the years that have wanted to exhume the grave, but so far, the town of Aurora has stopped them. Why? There is no one alive that was. There is no one today. There is no one that was alive back then when this event happened. So why continue to oppose the exhumation? I couldn't even get that word out. Exhumation.
I'm just letting you do your thing.
I know.
We
I'm
all
getting tongue-tied
We
now.
all mess up on words.
Well,
it
it
happens. It's not
this
easy
is
doing a live show.
no, it's not really. But I mean, why are they stopping it now? Because now it should prove one way or the other if an alien is buried there. The last known interview with someone who was alive back then was in 1973. The Associated Press interviewed a 91-year-old woman who was 15 at the time of this incident. And she stated that her parents went to the crash site, but wouldn't take her for fear of what would be in the debris.
Yeah.
So, and she also recalled, though, that the remains of the pilot, stating that he was a small man, and of the soldier in the town at the time, stating that the pilot was a Martian.
Well, what's a Martian? What was that? Their term
I'm surprised
of
they
what a
even
Martian
knew what a
is.
Martian was back then.
See, I mean, everybody has their own definition. Is a Martian like they had in the TV shows back in, I don't even know, was it the 50s and 60s when they had that Martian show where the guy looked human though. Was he maybe green? I don't know. The show's black and white. I only see old shows on MeTV, where they play old stuff.
I have that channel. Oh, My Favorite Martian.
Yeah, I mean,
Didn't that like come out in the late 50s, early 60s or something?
I don't know. I wasn't even alive, but I do see it on MeTV or whatever. But I mean, that guy, they called that a Martian. So is that what Martians look like? Do Martians look like little green men? Do they look like humans?
Don't know.
So
I'm surprised
it's kind
that
of a
back
broad term.
I'm surprised that back in 1897 they even knew that Mars existed. But then again, I don't know anything at all about astrology.
Well, they
but to
probably
just-
know a lot more things than they ever let on for people to know, I think, in some
Yeah.
history stuff. But
That's true. And to this day, though, the remains of the alien are still a mystery and the grave is still lost.
mm-hmm.
Nobody recalls exactly where this grave is. Now, in 2008, a Bill Burns and a Dr. Ted Ackworth used ground-penetrating radar to locate the grave. So they did these measurements, and compared pictures and stuff like that. And they pinpointed one location that they were sure was the right location. And the radar did show that it was an unmarked grave. But it also showed that the grave was so deteriorated that it was hard to tell if it were a human or an alien buried there. And as far as the headstone, there are photos of that headstone.
I'm sorry, the chat rooms make me laugh, but go on. It's hard to be serious. Okay, we're not always serious, guys, so I apologize for any new listeners who get offended. We're just two friends who banter, and you're going to hear us laugh. So
Exactly. What was I saying? As far as the headstone, there are photos that show that the headstone did exist. And there is a movement today for the exhumation of the alien grave.
that's a weird.
But there is a historical marker at the cemetery that does mention the 1897 crash. Now, this part will make you think that it's not a hoax. I mean,
Sorry.
if it were, why would the U.S. government try so hard to make it appear as one?
Well, wait. That's true. I'm just trying to slow you down a little bit because we still have like 40 minutes. But
Okay, well,
that is a good point. If it was a hoax, why would the government, seemingly go out of their way to make it appear as one?
well, the government has, this incident has been ridiculed and covered up by the government, which is standard tactics of the Majestic 12 group, or MJ12.
Oh, yeah.
Who is MJ12, you ask?
Well, I haven't asked, but who is MJ12? Spooky?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Raven.
Do I get a prize too? That'd be awesome.
Probably not.
Psh.
MJ12 is a group of government people who investigate and cover up alien encounters and sightings.
Mm-hmm.
They were formed right after the Roswell incident by President Harry S. Truman.
Kind of like what I mentioned a little earlier. We did an earlier show on, I think it was called aliens and strange otherworldly encounters throughout history. And we did talk about the government involvement with that. And we also talked about pilots. We talked about some of the stuff in the Bible, some of it in the old paintings, as well as wall carvings. Mm-hmm. Remember all that stuff?
Right.
It was kind of cool. I'll probably go back and listen to that show myself. But it was, you know...
That was one of our more interesting shows, I have to admit.
Yeah, because we did a lot of in-depth research on that one. And
yes, we sure did.
There was like other show topics from that I wanted to do, and I forgot all about it.
Actually, that particular story started out to be something else, but it ended up being UFOs and the government.
I don't remember. I'm lucky I remember what I did yesterday.
Because once we started researching this and the deeper we got into it.
Oh, that's right, because things are like a spider web. You get pulled into so many directions, and then you see how everything
it went so many
attached.
directions, and it all ended up in the same place, the government cover-up of UFO and alien encounters.
Rusty said the disinfo machine equals the MJ12. But,
yep.
Anyway, you guys should check that one out, because we did a lot of research on it. And Chipper, I think you would like that one. But, you know, you said Truman was like the first, you know, he was talking about, you know, we were talking about Truman. But, you know, Truman was like the first official, you know, quote unquote president to kind of have a dealing with the UFO phenomenon publicly. But
well, yeah, apparently he had an encounter with an alien.
Run-in, right. Oh, a few presidents have, Reagan and a bunch of them. Anyway, although there was actually like a lot of sightings and crashes that happened before him, but Truman seemed to become the one who became like the first president that was dealing with the American masses, speaking publicly about it. But at one point, he stopped allowing the American people to know about these contacts.
He was the one that ordered these groups. Well, actually, he formed them to not give any information to the American public, to always deny the existence.
Well, right. At one point, many that were involved, they were basically told to deny.
But I
think the only reason why they kind of spoke openly about it for a bit was because during 1952, if you remember when we were doing a lot of the research, there were a lot of... in the 50s, were a lot of UFOs being seen all around the country, probably even worldly, but a lot of them flew right over the White House, and they were seen by many, many, many people, and they were in headlines in the newspapers all over the country. They were on TV. People were talking all about this for a long time, and then all of a sudden, it's like that never happened. You notice that was kind of like erased from history. But Eisenhower, you know, he came after it, and he kind of considered... he was kind of like considered the last president who had the last control over, you know, the UFO situations that were occurring. But when Kennedy came and entered into the scene, that's when it was taken over by non-government entities and other like military contractors. Right. So we no longer had the presidents, and nobody else could no longer have control over it. They're no longer going to be able to speak about anything. It was taken over by some other unknown non-government entities and other military, whatever. We could go on and on with that type of topic. But like we mentioned on our previous show on the UFO throughout history, Eisenhower, they had talked about, had actually had met and conversed with otherworldly entities, and it was said that Eisenhower actually demanded information from the secret control group, what you called the MJ12, about alien-related projects and the facility near Area 51, also called S4. And he I think at one point even wanted to authorize like a military invasion of Area 51 and S4 if his request for information was not carried out. But basically, that's when Eisenhower lost total control of all extraterrestrial, like, related projects to, you know, like y'all was talking, now I'm from the South, control group called MJ12. Must have been that music we played during intermission.
Must have been.
But at that point, Spooky, they basically, we lost all control over it, and it went into the hands of who knows who these people are and whatever else. But there was a lot of this stuff going about, you know, and he was basically shut down and shut up. And Kennedy, I know that the Kennedys were interested in it. I think didn't even some other presidents later on, just recently, were wanting to get information when it came to these alien type of things, and they were like, mind your
I
own
think
P's
one
and
of the
Q's.
first things I read somewhere that one of the first things that they always asked was what's going on in Area 51,
They were like,
because Area 51 was so classified that even the president didn't know what was going on, but yet it was guarded by the military.
or
And
non-military people. You don't really know who's really in those uniforms or who's running them.
well, that's true too. And there was a big sign out there that says if you pass this sign, you will be shot.
No tacos for
So
you.
yeah, no tacos for you. But as I said before, they were in Aurora in the late 1940s, early 1950s, and left with all the evidence of the 1897 crash. Now, why? This was the government. And it just, to me, that right there says that it wasn't a hoax.
Right.
I could be wrong. Now, one of the things, though, that had skeptics ridiculing is the fact that this spaceship was described as a cigar-shaped. Now, people use descriptions of things they know, and back then, they knew cigars. They weren't going oval, square, whatever. It was cigar-shaped. Well, it looked like an egg, whatever,
Maybe it's this. Well, you know what? All you can do is
But-
try to bet. See, the reason why they were explained certain ways is because people try to associate a shape with something that they already kind of know, and they say, well, it kind of looked like this, or
Exactly.
it kind of looked like that. You never...
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like
And-
it looked
and-
100% like a egg, but it was
Yeah.
similar to the best that they could probably describe
Right.
it as.
And according to skeptics, though, at the time there are no cigar-shaped spaceships or any spaceships. But in May of 1981, 7 witnesses reported seeing a cigar-shaped craft over Texoma, Texas. And in 1995, a pilot for American West Airlines Flight 564 reported seeing a cigar-shaped craft with lights down the side. He even called it a spaceship. And he also made the statement, he says, well, it's that Roswell crap all over again. So,
He must be from your hood. Like to say crap.
no, he actually said that. Well, he may not have said crap. That's Penny's thing.
Yeah. Penny doesn't
Now-
just say crap, she says crap. It's a Louisiana in her, but go on. I lost my spot.
I lost my thought. Oh, the main reason that both military and skeptics use to prove that the whole story about the crash is a hoax is the fact that in 1897, that survey did not show a windmill on the property.
But maybe it got built after the survey.
Well, back then the
I don't
surveys
know.
were not always complete either.
Maybe the guy was
because
drunk and didn't
everything
really sketch
everything was
everything
done
out.
by hand.
Yeah, maybe the guy by
Every-
that point was lazy.
Yeah.
Was lazy.
I mean, after you draw these squares and everything and put all this stuff on there, your hand gets tired, and he says, Judge
Maybe he was
Proctor, oh
drunk.
heck, here's his land.
Maybe
you know?
he was drunk and just didn't put it on. Who knows? I mean, nobody really knows why it was left
Right.
off.
But back then, like I said, the surveys were not always complete because they were all drawn by hand.
Right.
Now, the Oates family are the current owners of the property and have been since the 1930s. So these people have been on this property a long time. But they were also skeptics, and they do not believe that this incident took place. And every time over the years when someone wanted to uncap this well, they flat out refused. But in 2008, Tim Oates finally agreed to uncap the well and gave permission to this Pat Uskert to examine the well and take water and soil samples, because he said that it would finally put this entire story to rest. Okay, now the cap was a concrete slab, and over that was this small brick building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was decided, though, that the best way to uncap this well was to dig down below the concrete slab and lift the entire thing, building and all.
Right.
And as they were digging around the building, they hit metal.
Yeah.
And when the metal was unearthed, there were 4 small bars, or not actually small bars, pretty good sized bars,
Right.
sticking in the ground.
Right.
And Tim Oates took a look at it, and he declared that the stakes were anchors for a windmill.
Right.
And he
You have to
said,
anchor those things down or they'll take off.
right. And he said the anchors would, the legs of the windmill
Or
would be
bolted to the
bolted
legs,
to
yeah.
the legs of, to these stakes.
So they wouldn't fall over or take off
You're
with the wind.
confusing me.
I can't confuse you. I'm just trying to help you. I thought you lost
He
your
said-
thought.
No, I was picking it up. He said he said the anchors would be bolted to the legs of the windmill to keep it from falling over.
Right.
So there was proof that a windmill did once stand over the abandoned well.
At some point, yeah.
At some point, there was a windmill there.
Right.
Now, the building and slab were removed, and U-skirt was lowered into the well once they got the rattlesnake out of it. Because when
Yeah, Doppel, I think
I was
Doppel-
watching the
Doppel mentioned that
thing on it,
rattlesnake
and they,
too, yep.
and they looked down there, and there was something moving, and there was a rattlesnake down there, and nobody would go down there and get it. But anyway,
But I'd be afraid of radiation if all of that supposedly
well, you know
was
what?
on
After
there.
all this time, I would be too.
Even
That would
opening
be
the
my
well
big
up,
thing.
digging in the ground, it would make you wonder, even being in the area, would you be affected if there was this radiation and who knows what else space poisons could been in there? If they were from space, I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
a thought.
but
We don't really know where they come from.
yeah, but he was lowered into the well, and he took samples of the water in the soil. Now, when the samples were tested, the results came back that there was a very high concentration of aluminum, but there was also another element in the soil that was declared unknown to this planet. And today, this element is still unknown.
You know, I saw lots of documentaries and different things when it comes to this one story, you know,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who, you know, claim to be experts or claim to be really thorough and researchers and stuff. There's some people who just think this is BS. There's other people believe that there really is something that did occur here. But, you know, but at this point, you know, you so all these things that kind of...
This is an incident that I'm on the fence about.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you're on the fence a
From
lot.
everything I read, I'm on the fence about this one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it was true, and I'm not saying it was a hoax. But what I
But
am
you kind of want
saying
more
is
information.
right. But I will say this about it though. Since the government got involved, I'm pretty much leaning toward the fact that this happened.
Right. So, like you're saying, of everything that you were saying, because we're all listening, but all these things
I hope so.
seemingly together, well,
I hate to think I was sitting here talking to myself.
that's normally on the other Skype calls, not on show nights. I do listen more. But they all seem to kind of point to the possibility that a UFO crash landed in Aurora, Texas.
Right.
You know, from everything that you were kind of mentioning, from what you dug up. And this is not the only reported sighting in Texas at that time.
That's
you know,
right.
like you said before, there were over 108, 109, whatever you said, sightings just in Texas alone. I think you said from 1895 just to in 1898. But there's
Right.
been even more sightings beyond that now, all the way up from there to today.
Yeah,
It's in the
absolutely. But
billions
during
of people.
during
I'm
this
talking about- not
particular
billions,
time
millions
frame,
maybe.
yeah. But during this particular time frame, though, from 1895 to 1898, there were literally hundreds
Yeah.
of sightings, and like I said before, there were at least 108 sightings in Texas alone. Now, in Center, Texas, in 1898. A Robert Atkinson often told that when he was a teenager, he would see flashing lights in the sky. And Atkinson was a veteran of the Spanish-American War. So, you know, this was a guy that had some respect. Bud Knight, a prominent resident of San Augustine, told similar stories. And he told the same stories all the way up to 1981, where, he died at the age of 108. Lee Chorin, he died in 1976 at the age of 94, and he told of seeing lights moving in the sky over Swift, Texas. And on April 22nd in 1897,
Yes.
a John Barclay of Rockland, Texas, told of encountering an alien who asked for items to repair his airship. So apparently, spacecrafts weren't too doggone sturdy back then.
But maybe they weren't. See, you're assuming they're from space. They could have been from here. They could have been.
I think it's interesting, though, that I didn't find any descriptions of any of the aliens that some of these people encountered.
Oh, when you were researching this? But there are things when we were talking about during our other alien shows, if that's what you want to call it, that they did have some descriptions. But in this one incident, the Aurora, Texas one, and these other things that you're talking about, nobody ever really, in the things that you're reading.
He was just described as small. But then again...
That could be a midget.
Well, maybe, but...
No offense to short people, I apologize.
They also stated earlier that the pilot was so disfigured that they really couldn't tell what he looked like, but they could tell enough to know that he wasn't from this world. That could have been from the shape of his head or whatever, And speaking of on April 22nd in 1897, on that same day, 100 miles from Rockland, Texas, in Josaran, Texas, Frank Nichols, who was one of the town's most respected residents, he told of hearing machine noises and looked out his window to see an airship land in his wheat field.
And this is in 1897, guys.
This is in 1897.
So, supposedly there's no flying, nothing metallic-y like that.
When he went out to investigate, he said he was stopped by two very short men who asked permission to draw water from his well. And he said that he had actually had a discussion with them, and that the men told him how their craft worked, but he said that it was so technical that he could not follow the explanation. 3 days later in Merkel, Texas, people were returning from church and they observed a heavy object being dragged by a rope or a cable attached to a cigar-shaped craft, and the object got caught on a railroad track.
Whoa.
And for 10 minutes, they watched this thing struggling to free this object from the railroad track, and they said finally, after 10 minutes, a man came down the rope or the cable and cut it free. I was just going to say,
must have been a man driving.
Must have been.
He's just trying to floor the craft. Be like, it'll eventually work its way loose. And they're like, screw it, I gotta climb out of the ship and cut the... Maybe they were time travelers. Maybe they weren't from outer space.
I don't know.
Maybe these guys were from the future with crafts that allow you to bounce back and forth through time. Maybe that's why they look more human-ish.
Could have been. But they said after 10 minutes of struggling with this thing, this man came down this rope or this cable,
right,
cut it free, went back aboard the craft, and flew off to the northeast. And the witnesses described the man as being small in a light blue uniform.
That's like the Nordics, or whatever. What was that? Isn't that what they were called? The ones that were blonde, blue-eyed, pale skin. Weren't they described as wearing blue military-type attire for their whatever crew? What do they call it? Wasn't that what the Nordics, or what were they called? I think that's what they were called. Do you remember? It's totally gapping on my brain right now, but that sounds like it's one of them, possibly. But I mean, maybe if there is the possibility of all this stuff, and then people are talking about time traveling, maybe people in the future know and have crafts that allow you to go back in time to observe or try to change things. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, the next day, late in the evening, near the town of Aquila, Texas, in South Texas, a local lawyer, they never did say who his name was, he was surprised to see a a lighted object fly quietly overhead as he was riding home from his office, and he was just outside the city limits, and his horse was scared and nearly toppled his carriage.
Wow.
He said the object was large and oblong and had a bright light that was observed to be sweeping the ground below the object. And when the main light was turned off, a number of smaller lights became visible on the underside of this dark colored metallic craft.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that it got, I guess it got low enough that he said it revealed a transparent canopy, and it continued toward this hill some 7 miles to the south of Aquila. And when the witness passed the same way approximately 1 hour later,
Mm-hmm.
he said he saw the object rising, and he said it reached the altitude of the cloud ceiling and flew to the northeast at a fantastic speed with periodic flashes of light. Now, these accounts are all given by respectable witnesses,
Well, yeah.
and they're separated by hundreds of miles, and all in. And they're all of these places now where these reports are were in a direct line with Aurora.
Yeah. Sorry, I have something in my throat. I apologize. It happens when after the second hour of our show, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know my throat's starting to get dry too. But it also, you have to remember that in 1897, distances were much greater than they are today, and news traveled at a much slower rate.
Well, yeah.
And it's
They don't have
inconceivable,
cell phones
really.
then.
Yeah, and it's inconceivable that there could have been any collusion between witnesses.
Right.
And it's highly unlikely that people living in towns separated by hundreds of miles could have heard news or read accounts of these happenings in other towns within the space of 2 or 3 days. I mean, this was a time when most news traveled by wire or by railroad. And unless there was really a critical need for residents of one region to have news of another, the expense of wiring this news was avoided.
Right. I just, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think something could have happened there. I really do. I think that these people, I think that the town of Aurora took the headstones, and what they did with them, I have no idea. But I think they deliberately removed the headstones so the location of the grave would not be found.
Right. So
And
some
I
people,
think
do you
that
think some people might
because you
believe or
can't,
disbelieve the story? Or
right, and I think that is part of what has kept the grave from being exhumed, because you can't go around a cemetery digging up willy-nilly, Well, there's an unmarked grave here, let's dig it up and see what's there. Or there's one over there, we'll get it next. You just can't do that. And I think that is probably what is helping this town to keep this grave from being exhumed. I
Yeah.
really do. And like I said, with the military coming in like they did,
yeah, like the MJ12 and stuff.
yeah, MJ12, I mean, they specifically deal with this stuff. That's what they were formed for. And they come in and they take all of these so-called souvenirs.
And they're
this
interested
debris.
in this to go to this town, take everything that's connected to this story.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot. I mean, I don't know if
There's too much going on here,
Yeah. I mean,
really, for it to be a hoax. I don't think it is a hoax. I mean, really, I'm kind of on the fence about it. But like I said, I'm leaning further to the fact that this actually happened, and this town is actually protecting this grave.
right. I mean, we don't know.
Well,
does it
can
really
you
exist?
imagine, though, if they find the grave? It's going to be a circus in that town, and that's probably what these people are avoiding. They don't want it to be a circus. They want to just go along with their lives, and just keep everybody else out of there.
I'm laughing because Doppel said the Para A team, Mr. T, will play Spooky in the TV movie. I know you're not seeing chat, but every once in a while I'll catch some of the things, and I just love these people on the internet. You know what I mean? I love going to their shows. I love bantering in their chats too, as well as here. But I'm really glad we met you guys, because now we have people that we can banter with when it comes to all these different topics, and we really enjoy you guys sending us messages and show topics and everything else. But I don't know, it just seems to me that something this important would not be lost unless it was, well, I don't know, what do you want to say, like on purpose, deliberately? You know what I mean?
I was reading chat. I didn't catch what you said. Would you please repeat it?
I just said, like you were saying, someone knows the exact location of this grave.
Someone knows, and I will bet that it's been passed down. So I just don't think that the exact location is exactly lost. I think it's been passed down, and I think somebody in that town, probably more than one, knows the exact location of that grave.
Right. And, for something that's this important would not be lost unless it was on purpose, or led to believe that it was lost. But, I mean, that's why, I don't know.
I don't know, and like I said, I find it very, very strange that the military is coming in and trying to make off with all the evidence of this crash.
Well, it's not just this place, but any there's so many cases when it comes to people seeing unknown crafts, people seeing crafts landing on the ground, people having encounters with humanoids or other strange entities or beings, but not even just UFOs. When it comes with really odd paranormal type of things, or cryptid creatures, that these supposedly military men, we don't really know if they work for the U.S. government or if they work for some unknown company or whoever is running these people. They always seem to show up. They seem to scare people out to not telling their stories anymore, or the story seems to end, or they take any and all evidence so that they can say this is all a hoax, none of this can ever happen. Yeah. I think there's just too many people on our planet alone over a span of many, many moons that have seen and or encountered many things for us to say that none of it's true, all of it's hoaxes, blah, 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 blah. I call BS.
Well,
I mean, there are some hoaxes and there are real legitimate things that have occurred.
I think it's worth pointing out that the people of this time and place, and we're talking about late 19th century Texas, they were extremely conservative by nature, and they were skeptical by necessity. And it's I think that there simply would be nothing to gain from concocting a story concerning this particular thing, of an airship. Now, it's true at the time Aurora was struggling, but so wasn't a lot of other places during that time. It wasn't just Aurora, Texas. There were hundreds of towns struggling during this era.
Right.
I think that they would have not only not been believed, but their sanity and sobriety and their competence would have come into serious question. Mm-hmm. Unlike today, though, when one would admit an account like this, it's immediately called a hoax, an attempt to gain attention and monetary fame.
Right.
And this simply would not have been the case in 1897.
Right.
I mean, the most likely result of a story like this...
Who's talking about spacecrafts and things like that in the 1800s?
Exactly.
They're and worried about making it across the country, making sure they don't get killed and jacked by serial killers and stuff.
At the time, there were literally hundreds of sightings all over the country. And like I said, the most likely result of a story like this, unless absolutely And verifiably true would have been shunning by the community as the village idiot,
Yeah.
or the town drunk, or worse.
Right. Well,
You're
maybe there
talking
was,
about a Protestant fundamentalist religious atmosphere at this time.
that was a big word mouthful
I know. I
there.
paid $1 for that word.
Yeah.
Um,
A whole dollar. It's hard
A
enough to
whole
get your
dollar.
purse to break open for a penny.
I know.
Jeez.
But one would have been considered blasphemous or sacrilegious.
Right. Exactly.
I paid 50 cents a piece for those two.
Right. But no,
And even satanic, really, and definitely shunned by most of the so-called upright and upstanding citizens of the community.
Well, yeah, that's the thing when it comes to when it comes to certain time periods and certain locations. Everybody kind of subscribed to their own thing, and anybody who came in spouting anything else different, you could have been hung or who knows what else. Okay.
Exactly. But what about the alien grave? Does it really exist?
Yeah.
And if it does, then someone knows the exact location.
Right.
And it just seems to me that something this important would not be lost unless it was deliberately.
Right, like I said before.
But that is why, that's why we bring
these kind of shows. Yeah,
these kind of shows. We give you the information and then we let you decide for yourself.
Right, and we just try our best to dig as much as we can to try to go beyond what most people do, and sometimes we can't because some of these things you really can't dig that far because maybe there isn't really that much to it, but we really try our best when you guys give us a show suggestion to really try to go as far as we can to find all the different avenues that may be connected to these stories that you're asking us to check out for and stuff like that. And, again, we just want to thank you, the viewer who did suggest this. I'm sorry it took us a while to get to it, but life and everything else happens. But, I don't know. I think the first story, I think that they did have an encounter with something.
I think they did. I believe they did.
Yeah, I don't know if these things are from outer space or if they're from here. You know what I mean? But I kind of believe their story. I really do, because there are... My voice is like, you're done talking, shut up. But I just think that that wasn't their only case back then. There was a lot of them that we were reading on UFOevidence.org. Also in the references, we're going to put after the show, I'll put in the YouTube description, all the links where we get a lot of these informations from, and some really good UFO websites where they kind of have everything from the 1800s all the way up today with a lot of different things. And people telling their stories, having photos, and all those things. So it'll be in one of the UFOevidence.org or something like that.
UFOcase.org.
Well, that was one of the ones you were on. But the one main one that we love, I think it's called UFOevidence.com or .org. It's awesome. But I believe that they had an encounter. I don't think that it was monkeys. I don't think it was space or like military holograms. I don't think it was owls. I really did think that they encountered something that's not known for it to be around here. As far as the Aurora, Texas thing, something occurred. Maybe it was more...
I believe something happened there.
I just don't know what for sure,
Right, we just don't know what, because this is a case where the town basically is being tight-lipped. They're not giving away anything.
But in a way, it's good because, one, it keeps income coming in a little bit. And, to keep a small town going.
Well, this was a town that was dying out. The town could have made money off of this, and they didn't do it. They just cleared up the debris. What they did, how they got rid of it, I don't know. There was nothing in there. Nobody really knows. They do know that some of it was thrown down that well. Mm-hmm. The town has not gained anything from this.
Right.
And they are also hiding the location of the grave.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I guess I got confused a little bit. But like I'm saying, I found both of these fascinating. I find a lot of, what am I talking about? I find almost everything fascinating when it comes to the unknown or bizarre or even just cold cases or everything else. But why don't you kind of let everybody know what we'll be doing next week, if that's okay, unless you still have something more to say.
No, I'm pretty well set out.
I'm done talking.
I want to thank our mods, Penny and Richard, for doing a good job. I want to thank all of our listeners that came in to listen to the show and to join us in chat. I want to thank Raven for a good show. Join us April 5th, 2016, when we discuss unexplained mysteries, spontaneous human combustion. Can a human body suddenly burst into flames? Tune in Tuesday as we share
No.
reports and banter about the possibilities or the probability of such an event occurring. Thank you for coming. Please subscribe to us, give us a like, and share us with others on any social media site you may be a part of.
Right, and if you guys want to get show reminders, you can go to our website. You can find it on our Google or YouTube, but it's anything but ordinary at wix.com. You can go in there and subscribe to have show reminders, or also I think you can find them on YouTube. We have a Facebook page if you guys want to go and connect there. You can find show reminders or suggest show topics.
You
or
can also
even
find
contact
previous
us.
you can also find previous shows in there that you can listen to or download or
whatever. I just want to say thank you all for coming. Thank you guys for sharing us with everybody, with your friends. Thank you for all the awesome banter and chat. I love reading and engaging with you guys. And, go out and check out the other shows. Rusty has a show. Dom has a show. I think on Fridays and some other nights. I don't know, but we do also post our friends' shows when we can on our page and stuff. And go check them out. And we'll see you guys in other chats. And thank you for coming. And hopefully we'll see you guys all next week.
Also on Facebook, we have a page called Spooky's Corner that you can...
Oh, go in and sign in, because everybody, we share our own personal paranormal photos, right. EVPs,
and we
videos,
will even,
everything.
And if you have a show, we will allow you to post the link to your show on there.
Yeah, but we're all here to support each other, and we're just really grateful for meeting you guys, and it just makes life so much funner for us both.
Yeah,
so
it does.
You guys have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you at other shows, and we'll see you next Tuesday. All right, good night.
Good night.